Ever heard that saying? The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Well, that's kind of what we're diving into today, but with a twist. We're really digging into why huge, innovative companies, I'm talking like Kodak, Nokia, Blockbuster, ended up as, well, cautionary tales. And
Okay.
let me tell you, it's way more complicated than just they didn't see it coming.
Right, right.
We're looking at this article, Innovation Leaders Become Losers, and it goes deep on this. Really excited to break it down with you.
Yeah, you know what gets me? It's like there's this pattern almost. It's not that innovation just kind of happens gradually. It comes in these massive waves, like creative destruction almost. The old way is gone, but those companies, the ones who are doing great with the old way, they don't even realize they need to change with it.
That whole wave thing really hits home, actually. And the article really dives into this idea that it starts with how these companies see themselves, their
hmm
identity.
You got it. Perfect example, Kodak. I mean, they were film photography for so long, generations. They were it. But that was the problem. They were so stuck on Kodak equals film that when digital came along, it's like they were blind to the fact they were in the imaging business, really. Even with the technology right there in their labs, couldn't see it.
It's like that story about those Swiss watchmakers, right?
hmm
The ones who wouldn't even consider those quartz movements because to them, well, it wasn't real watchmaking. Huge mistake. And then on top of that, you've got that whole golden goose problem the article talks about. Why kill off a product that's making tons of money?
Yeah, yeah. It seems obvious at first, right?
Yeah.
But Sony and the Walkman versus the MP3 player, perfect example. They were so scared of piracy, hurting their music business, that they didn't go all in on digital music and basically handed it all to Apple. Holding on too long, it can be fatal.
And here's something I find interesting. These new technologies, these waves, they're not always that great at first, are they?
No, not at all.
They're more expensive, harder to use, just not as good. Well, at least at first.
Totally. Like imagine you're a leader, right? And you're all about the numbers, the spreadsheets, the profits. You might miss the bigger picture entirely. That's Kodak with digital cameras right there. Resolution was terrible early on, so they weren't interested. Focused on what was right in front of them.
So it comes down to taking a chance on something that's not a sure thing, huh?
The statistically safe bet problem, they call it. And yeah, I mean, why gamble when something's not proven? Makes sense. But here's the thing. By the time the numbers do prove it, it's often too late. Miss the boat.
So we've got that identity trap, the golden goose, and the fact that these game-changing technologies, they don't always look so great at the beginning. No wonder companies struggle. But it gets deeper, right? The article says it's not even just the technology itself, it's everything around it, the whole system.
100%. Think about patents, right? A company has all these patents, but for like film chemistry, when everything's going digital, sensors and software, useless. Their business, selling film, paper, it all became a problem overnight. Even the company culture itself. If everyone's getting rewarded for doing things the same way, just a little better each time, who's looking for the next big thing?
So it sounds like if a company wants to, ride those waves, it takes a certain way of thinking. Well, it's like, got to be willing to shake things up yourself before someone else does.
It's the two-wave challenge, they call it in the article. Basically, you got to be amazing at two things at once. Running the show with your old stuff and getting ready for what's next. Like, I don't know, juggling chainsaws while riding a unicycle or something.
Okay, now that's an image. But did anyone actually pull that off?
Sony's a good example, weirdly enough. Remember those old, huge TVs? The CRT ones? Well, they went from those to LCD, then to OLED, masterclass in two-wave thinking. They stayed on top of the TV game for decades because they were willing to, disrupt themselves, get ahead of the curve.
That's wild, but Sony's massive, right? Tons of resources. What about companies that don't have that kind of cash or people? This whole disrupting yourself thing sounds good, but doesn't it just cause chaos?
That's the trick, isn't it? The article actually talks about how office politics play into all this. So say you're like the head honcho of a division, your product's the moneymaker, right? And then some new team, they want resources to build something that might make you obsolete. How are you going to feel?
Yeah, a little tense, probably.
Exactly. Innovation means you got to back the underdog sometimes, even if it ruffles feathers.
It's crazy how much of this is about psychology, human nature. We think innovation, it's all tech, but it's not.
Not even close. And sometimes, by the time that new wave is undeniable, it's too late anyway. Patents are locked up, teams are formed, the whole system's running on this new thing. Catching up. Near impossible.
There's a clock ticking. But at the same time, you can't just chase every shiny new thing.
Nope. It's about strategy. almost thinking backwards. Remember the waves? Got to know which one will carry you, which ones will wipe you out.
And even more important, being honest about where your whole industry is going, not just where it's at now.
Couldn't agree more. It's the little signs, the things most people miss. That's what matters.
This has been eye-opening. But after all this, learning how companies mess up even when they're on top, where does that leave us as individuals?
But the million-dollar question. Thing is, these patterns, these traps, they don't just apply to companies, do they? It's our careers, our lives, too.
It's like that saying, disrupt yourself or be disrupted. But now, we actually get what it means.
Exactly. Question your assumptions, be willing to challenge the way things are, take risks, and maybe, just maybe, be a little less in love with our own golden geese when there's something way better right around the corner.
Love that. So to everyone listening, what are those little signs in your world, the next waves people are missing? Because the real winners, the innovators, they're not just riding waves, they're reading the currents, getting ready for that next big swell before anyone else even sees it coming.
Now there's something to think about.
And on that note, we're wrapping up this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, keep innovating.
Absolutely.
This has been, wow, really eye-opening. Makes you think about, like, not just work, but learning, growing, all of it.
We talk about disruption like it's this big thing, right? But usually it's not. It's a bunch of tiny little shifts. You add them all up.
It's like that quote, what is it? The future's already here, just not evenly distributed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we see those little signs, those changes, but we ignore them because they don't make sense yet.
And that's the opportunity. You spot those signals, the things nobody else is paying attention to, you're golden. You can actually use those changes.
It's being okay with not knowing everything, right? Taking chances, even messing up sometimes. If you're not a little uncomfortable, you're not pushing hard enough.
100%. Big takeaway for me from the article was this: innovation. It usually means challenging what you believe. We get so used to doing things our way, especially when it works, that we miss other options.
It's like we're so busy counting the money from the golden goose, we don't see that flock of, I don't know, platinum swans flying overhead.
Yeah.
So how do we actually use this? What can we do to not get left behind?
Well, we got to be learning constantly, right? Doesn't have to be like business books all day, every day. Just being curious, asking questions, hearing from different people.
And maybe, just a little, taking things with a grain of salt when someone who's doing really well tells you it's the only way to do it.
Exactly. Think for yourself. Don't be afraid to, shake things up a bit.
So to wrap this whole thing up, I think what we've learned today is innovation isn't about the gadgets, the tech itself, really. It's about being brave enough to question what you believe, to listen to new ideas, and never stop learning. Do that. You're not getting crushed by those waves of change. You're riding them.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been a great deep dive. Really got us thinking. Until next time, everybody, stay curious, stay adaptable, and keep your eyes on the horizon.